another edition of Ladies Like Us. I appreciate everybody coming in. We have Keisha here. Keisha can't put a picture up, but say hi, Keisha.
Hello.
And we are just waiting for our other people to come into the panel. I appreciate everybody just joining us. Hit that like button, subscribe, comment. This is a little odd, but we'll get through all of it. Keisha, how was your day?
It was good. I can't complain.
Yeah, it's pretty early, right? Your time
No,
is different than mine.
no, I'm just an hour behind you guys.
It's time different makes a difference. To me, it does. Hello, Sana. Can't wait for you to join us. How was your week, Kay?
It was good. It was good. A little hectic, but that's life.
Life is hectic. It's a lot of fun. hmm Hectic is not really fun, but yeah, life's fun. Um, I have no idea if anybody else can see this twitching. Is my camera twitching?
No, it's whatever your background is.
Okay, you sound lovely today. It's whatever your background is.
No,
Okie dokie.
you don't look like you twitching.
So we have our topic today is going to be parental controversy. Lots of fun controversy when you think that the custodial parent should have the final say, or do you think that the parents should be parents, which is grown-ups, and have communication where they decide what's best for the child, both parents. Again, we are waiting, and that's always fun. But Keisha, what do you think?
That's interesting. I feel like both parents should have some mutual understanding for the kids, but that's not always the case.
Why do you think that's not the case?
It's both sides. Either they don't get along, they don't want to communicate, and it could be women hold kids away from their fathers, vice versa. It could be a whole number of things, but no one's going to admit who's wrong on either end. So the kids suffer.
Sana, do you see the link in the chat? There's a link in the chat to connect you to come up on the show. But yes, in a perfect world, the parents are caring and they're listening. Okay. I hear it as she says no. All right. Not sure what's happening. The link is in the.
It's in the comments. I see it.
Yeah. All right. We're having just like a lot of fun in the beginning of this thing. We'll just see how this works out. Lots of fun. But in a perfect world, both parents are thinking the same way, but man thinks different than women. So it's not going to be exactly right. In my own personal, I have an issue with the father not maturing enough to make decisions. So therefore, I don't get him involved in the decisions. So me being the custodial parent, I do not even call him up to ask him. Did you have that issue when your daughter was younger, Keisha?
No, I didn't.
So tell us a different perspective.
So with my child and her father, it was always because of the occupation that he was in, he wasn't in the same state when she was little. But if I needed to contact him or anything, I knew how to get a hold of him. So when it came to making decisions that was best for Layla, my child, I did what I had to do on my end, and then I informed him. He was always aware of what was going on.
Okay. Hello, Latita. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I am well. How was your week?
It was all right. Can't complain yet.
You can't complain yet. Okay. I think it's over. I think you're starting a whole new one.
Yeah, starting a whole new week, getting ready to jump into it and see what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoying the weekend and holding on to bits of it to sprinkle through the week.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So, introducing Latita, she is going to give us the perspective of a therapist because sometimes we just have our own little ways as parents and not so much as a perspective of the mental part of it for our kids for the with when it comes to parental controversy. Is that right, Miss Latita?
absolutely, absolutely.
And I see my girl Sana is on the screen. Hello, how are you? How is your day? It's still on mute.
I'm good. My day is great. I just want to shout out my girl Letitia. Hey, Letitia.
Hey,
Um,
Sana.
yeah, today is a family day, so you're gonna hear a lot of kids in the background.
That's all good. That's all good.
All right. And Sana is working with her voice, so we're not going to bother her way too much, but I know she'll say something if she needs to. That's always the best. So it's Letitia.
Yes,
Oh,
Letitia.
okay. All right. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
No, you got to say it right. You got to say it right.
Yes, absolutely.
So they'll remember your name correctly, and I will too.
That's right. That's right. So, as far as the topic at hand, um, parental controversy, I wanted to get some more feedback on the controversy aspect of parenting, so that I can be sure that I can speak to it from the right angle.
Okay, well, we had a video I was going to show. I'm not sure if the producer can still put the video up. Um, I'll just give you a little background on exactly what I was thinking with the controversy, just the mindset of parents thinking differently, what's best for the child, when the child should go to bed. When I should put out there, basically, it's when the parents are not together, not so much as the parents within the home, but you know how most or we see a lot of parents right now in two different homes. And the custodial parent has the rights to the child 98% of the time, but there's controversy on what they think is the best for their child.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I work with a good deal of parents that are that co-parent, and parents that are in the same home that even have controversy. And so it's an interesting aspect of just parenting as a whole, just the definition of controversy and how that affects the whole dynamic between the parent and the child, and even both parents. And I think what I've seen over time is just the unspoken um, power differential when it comes to parenting. And a lot of times people feel that one parent has more power than the other. And it creates a battle where the other parent that doesn't feel that they have as much power then has to exert um, either some type of unnecessary control or anything just to be heard. And what I always tell parents in that space is to take a step back and not look at it as who has control over the child, but who understands the child at a different level. And that kind of helps things kind of move a little bit differently in that regard. Hold on one second. It's family day. I'm running errands at the same time. But I think that in that aspect of things, um, it definitely kind of helps to gain um, a sense of equality when it comes to parenting, when it now becomes not what I think is best for the child, but what I know the child to be, and how this can be implemented because it works, or what needs to be changed because it doesn't work. I can't hear. Hold on a second. Can you hear me? I can't hear anybody.
Oh, I apologize. I have myself on mute.
Okay, there we go.
I'm up here talking. I don't even know if you can see my lips moving, but I apologize.
That's okay.
I was on mute because I had other noise before. I apologize.
Okay. Yes. But that's how I've kind of approached that, is just really making the needs of the child and what we understand about the child the priority, as opposed to feeling not empowered, or feeling that you don't want to have control and that sort of thing, and just kind of eliminate that struggle, or reduces it rather.
Jasmine, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Can we get a perspective from you?
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess as a child in the situation, like I kind of, at a certain point, I didn't really have a say so in how things went. I kind of just had to go along with it. But I would say as the older I get, and as the older I got, in my personal like parenting situation, I just tried to prioritize myself, because I feel like sometimes parents can get really wrapped up in what's going on with them and what's going on in their personal lives, and sometimes you have to learn how to prioritize your own peace and your own happiness before they're able to do it for you as their child. So yeah.
I agree with that. I personally have not had the issue. I did have my parent personally. My parents were together, but my dad thought differently than my grandparents. So that was always fun.
Definitely.
Not to take anything away from, I'm sorry, what you just said, Jasmine. I apologize. Not to
no, not at all. No,
but I do. We definitely need to listen to the perspective of someone within the situation itself. Another thing I wanted to discuss was how the trauma that it can lead if you're in a relationship and you're doing so much. But I'm waiting for the video to come up so we can discuss the video. So I apologize if it sounds a little delayed. It's been a lot of fun. Here it comes.
I would like my kids. What, you just pick them up from school? It's Sunday. You know damn well they not at no school. I don't know what y'all doing. Can you give me my kids, please? Lucas and Elmo, come on.
Okay, now look. Y'all go ahead and go with y'all mama. This all the footage I needed. All right? She keeps trying to pull this bullshit saying that I don't want to get y'all. She want to keep, listen, no, don't touch him. Don't touch him. She want to keep telling y'all.
I had to actually stop that video because.
Okay, so on that just a little tidbit
watch
of the video.
The father thinks he's doing better for those children by explaining to them, but in my opinion, he's doing more harm than good. Not a good look, Dad.
Ladies, just on that little tidbit of the video, and I'm going to start with Jasmine. Who do you think is thinking of the children in that video?
In my opinion, I would say neither party is thinking of the children. The fact that this video was on social media is a problem in itself.
Okay.
I think that in a situation where you're taking kids into consideration, on one side of it, if that's the reaction that they had to having to go home to their mother, then that's something to be explored. However, it's not the father's place to try to quote unquote explain or tell his side of the story or anything like that. I feel like one thing I do appreciate about my parents is that they allowed me to kind of form my own opinions of my parent, like of them separately without trying to influence them.
Okay.
And I feel like that allows for a better relationship as a child and then as an adult too, because then I've decided how I feel about you based on my own personal experiences and not because of a message that's been put in my ear by somebody. But I definitely feel that problem number one is that this was even being recorded, because I feel like moments like this are personal. You keep them in your house. You have open dialogue with your children, yes, but you have that open dialogue between you. Like you don't expose what's going on in your home to the world.
Keisha, what's your perspective on the video?
Well, I agree with Jasmine to an extent, because him exposing it for everyone to see could be his way of showing showing his perspective. Although it's wrong to expose his children to that, people need to see, because I think there's so much that goes on behind closed doors that no one actually gets to see what both sides goes through. Okay. And then you can have a narrative that's put out there that would make it seem that he's not doing what he needs to be doing for his kid. But that video clearly shows that the mom, she has an issue. And I think sometimes parents, instead of them focusing on the child's needs, they get so caught up in their own feelings, how they feel about each other, and the children, which is supposed to be the most important factor in these type of scenarios. They got lost because each of them have their own. He's mad at her, she's mad at him. But what about the children? I like the kids crying. I have a problem with the kids crying. But why isn't he allowed to see his kids? If he's there to go get his kids, why are they not? Why won't the mom let the kids go? Like, what's the issue? Is it the issue she has with him? Because a lot of times, let's be real, women are bitter just like men are bitter. So in that scenario, it's like they're both holding their kids from each other. And that, to me, it's just too much. That's too much to put on kids. And as Jasmine said, I feel like it's a parent's responsibility to let the child form their own opinion. You're supposed to, no matter how the parent is, let the child be able to form their own decision. Because at the end of the day, neither one of you are heroes if you're bad mouthing each other to the child. Like, neither one of you guys both look like you don't know how to be cordial just for the sake of the kids. The kids should be the most important factor.
Okay. So now, what do you think? What's your perspective?
Yeah. Okay. Because like I said in the comments earlier, first of all, thank you everyone for your commentary. These are really valid points, very deep points. And I believe it's important to realize that there are many different perspectives outside of a 10, 15 second snapshot.
Correct.
I see there's a question in the chat asking why she was at the house. And see, I was in the same place. What is the actual context? Did the children just get to dad's house and mom was ready to take them home right away? And that's why they were saying they wanted to stay with dad. What was actually happening? We have no idea. And then we take our own traumas and our experiences and our projections and our assumptions and our implicit biases and our preconceived notions. And we built this entire narrative about this couple of seconds. And now we've demonized the mom and the dad, when the fact is they both probably need some therapy and some counseling from their own childhood trauma, and the children should never know that there's discord between those two parents. That is absolutely unacceptable. And I agree with Jasmine. You know, she got that from her mommy. You don't go around telling everybody what's going on in your house. That is not their business. At the same time, there are situations where people need to know what's going on in the house. There are also
Right.
safety issues. You know, there are also children being exposed to things that children should never even have to know. So from that one snapshot, I could say, brother and sister, please go get some therapy and do what's best for those children, even if that means taking yourself out of that situation.
I agree. So now we will have Miss Letitia explain it to us, or what she thinks, knowing the mental piece of it, please.
Yes, I totally agree with what Sanaa mentioned with, the snapshot and being able to kind of determine, the bigger picture from there. And a lot of times what I've seen, even in situations like that with families that are very dysfunctional or have their own histories and things, is their intention is to do the best for their children in
Right.
in a lot of situations, and it's just not understanding what damages children, because when you think about it from a bigger picture, that may be better than the situations that they've experienced as children. They may be in a place where they're like, well, even though this is toxic, it's not as toxic as what I've seen. And I think a lot of times
True.
it gets underestimated, the damage of children based off of our own measure of that, where sometimes where we see situations like this, and this could be better than what they've experienced or even what they've done in the past, is might be an improvement.
Definitely.
And so
Mhm.
it's something where it's looking at really just understanding how children function and what really damages children, and how to take that into consideration as you're parenting and co-parenting with possible histories that may not be so great.
See, I know it was just a real quick snip of the video and what have you, but the part that bothered me the most was the father grabbing a hold of the little one in order for him to finish saying what he was thinking. That bothered me. I thought that it was just not the right move at all. Like, if you're going to explain it, you're feeling some type of way, grabbing the child makes them feel like now there's danger or there's something. I don't know. Did anyone else feel like the holding the little boy's shoulder was incorrect?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because then he said, don't touch me, don't touch me. And then he got the thought out, like, wait a minute. Ultimately, we're starting off with the love for the children, not the need to get this thing off our chest and kind of, put on display, right?
Right.
Letitia, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
No, I said absolutely that it wasn't, that part definitely wasn't okay.
I think it causes a whole different trauma to them. Not only are they arguing, and well, the mother wasn't so much arguing as the father was for himself. I think the mom was just saying she wanted her children, but that's just my perspective. I felt like she wanted her children. I don't know if she was supposed to be showing up at the house. It didn't seem like it, but just grabbing hold of the child is a totally different trauma. First, parents are arguing, and then you grabbing hold of me. The baby doesn't understand what's happening.
So true.
Scrolling through says, what do you think could happen if, wait, would that have happened if she showed up? No, I don't think it would have happened if she didn't show up, but I don't know if he was supposed to drop them off somewhere either. That's a big thing. If the mom and dad were supposed to meet up, drop them off.
I feel like with what you guys were saying, it's with it being such a short clip, it's like we don't really have a good amount of context to know. And I really feel like that's part of the reason why the video just didn't need to, because it's just like with it being so short and the only thing you really get to hear is him talking about his side, and then you kind of just see everybody else. The only thing that the video really gives is just, look at me, look at what I have to say about what's going on, but it doesn't really leave you with a lot of context to actually figure out who's right, who's wrong, what actually is going on. There's a lot of gray area.
Okay, so just some insight, because I picked this video. I don't know if anyone watches the TikToks or whatever. This young lady, the mother, she has a TikTok, and she was explaining how they were so much in love, and then all of a sudden she explained that he was abusive, the father, and that they were away from each other. And then the next video that comes up, because this TikTok thing, they put on all their information on it, if you ask me. The next video is this video where she's showing how no, he's showing how she's actually toxic as well, because she put up how he was abusive. I'm not sure if anyone on the panel has ever been in an abusive relationship, but there is that thing where you don't want your children around that person because you know they can get abusive. So
that's understandable.
So I definitely have, there's so much I could say in that space. Let's just talk about statistics.
Okay.
Statistically, abusers are known to abuse the children in the absence of the abused parent. So when you have that information as a parent, yes, you want to give the children their own framework. You don't want to poison them, correct? But when you know that they are unsafe, it is your responsibility as a steward over these minor children to make sure that they are safe, even from you. So when it comes to that, it can't always be about both people having say. If the people having say are dangerous people.
With that insight, what do you think now, Jasmine?
With that insight, I have a lot that I could say on this topic as well, but I'm going to keep it short and just say that I definitely agree with my mom when she said that everybody involved needs to go to counseling and they need to think of the needs of the children, because in that situation, that sounds very volatile. So I really hope that they get the help to figure those things out.
Okay. Well, we're in a big girl space, and I do understand that both of you are on, but we really want your perspective as a young adult on it. But I do respect your decisions on how much to say and what not to say. But it is very important to have a clear understanding that sometimes parents react because they are the steward, as Sanaa said. Like, we are the stewards that are supposed to watch over you, and your well-being is really up to us, the nurturers, the women, really moms, the mother of the children, really want to make sure wherever you're at, you're in the safest environment, if not in our care.
Of course.
So
I hope that was her trying to help the kids, and that was her way of showing that she was trying to be there for them in that situation.
You don't think that? I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Oh no, I was saying that I hope that that's what it is. I feel like I still kind of feel like I don't have enough context to really know why she was there, but I hope that if the reason is because he is doing those things, I hope that that's the reason why she was there, to protect them and that she had their best interest.
Because otherwise she could be just harming them by showing up and making it a difficult situation, you think?
I feel like otherwise it might just be adding flames to a fire that was already started in that case.
Okay.
But if she's there to protect her kids, then by all means, protect them. Somebody needs to.
Yep, definitely. Keisha, your perspective?
Well, I'm on the fence. And the reason why is because I have been in a abusive relationship when I was a teenager. And although I got pregnant and didn't have that child, I can say I was tortured in that relationship, and thank God that I didn't have a child. Thank God that I didn't have a child. But seeing that video, it makes me wonder, like, are both of them abusive to each other? As I mean, as the mom and dad? Because and I can only speak for me and myself, being somebody that was in an abusive relationship. If I know you are an abuser, there would be no in hell I would want you around my child. That's just me. Because like I said, I've lived through it, and being abused by a man when you're young, it's not a fun feeling. And I've carried that type of thing in relationships after that because I was so scared looking over my shoulder. But thank God now, that was when I was a teenager, and as an adult, I mean, it taught me a life lesson of things to watch for and what I wouldn't do going forward. So my thing is, if either of them were feeling like they're both abusers, why not get help? Because that, again, it's doing what's best for the children.
No, okay. There's okay. I will put out the elephant in the room. Black people do not go to therapy. We think we can solve it all, or we just don't solve it. I mean, just, in general, you don't see a lot of people, and people need to know that therapy is okay all the way across the board. Women don't have to go do it. Men don't have to be the only ones doing it. Everyone needs therapy. Everyone needs to go get the help, go to the courthouse, not just to put someone on child support, but to put yourself on a support system that's best for the child. Letitia, what do you think? Anybody's faces, so I'm just calling names out.
Yeah. I definitely feel that in an abusive relationship, both parties definitely need therapy. Both parties would have different types of therapy. The biggest thing, usually the abuser goes to therapy not by choice.
Okay.
The abuser usually goes to therapy after either being mandated by the court because something happened,
right.
And then they have to do it. And the victim of abuse usually goes into therapy and doesn't realize that they have taken on even certain characteristics of the abuser in order to stay safe. And I think that when it comes to the point of abuse, most people, the majority of people, don't even know that they're in an abusive relationship until it's so far in.
Right.
And whether it's emotional abuse, physical abuse, all the different types of abuse, the victim doesn't even realize that they're being abused. They either feel like they're just having an argument, or they're having a fight, and then they're in a space where they begin to even lose their identity because they're trying to figure out what they're doing wrong to not have this behavior come about again. And it sometimes takes years of programming during abuse, where it's usually not even recognized. And usually before physical abuse starts, emotional abuse starts.
Okay.
Psychologically, it becomes, that's the first thing. And usually people are abused more times than they know. Once it becomes physically abusive, they've already been emotionally abused since the first date. They were abused at the moment that they decided to say, yeah, I can, go out with you for a little bit. It starts immediately. You know what I mean? And it's something that it takes work to undo that programming so that it doesn't carry over to the children. It doesn't carry over to, family members. It's deep, but it definitely does call for some type of resource. Not even if it isn't therapy, even if it's a group a support group and things like that, because a lot of times some people aren't ready for therapy because of the shame that they
Correct.
feel for, being in that space. But they definitely need some type of support, whether it's in the community, whether it's a friend that you can trust that is not going to be judgmental and things like that. Um, Therapy is one way, but there's a lot of other ways to kind of get that support in finding self again.
Okay, I want to touch on two things. Scrolling through says statistics say kids are better off with their fathers. Do you feel like they're better off with their fathers, or just a parent that actually cares about every aspect of the child?
A parent that's emotionally well to parent. So whether it's the father or the mom, if there's a parent, whichever parent provides consistency and safety and has their own emotional well-being taken care of.
Okay, I agree. I think you said program them to think differently. I think it's a deprogram after a while. You deprogram them because they think it's the norm with the abuse. But that's my personal opinion on it. Sanaa, do you have anything else to say about that?
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Like I said, I can't see anybody's faces, so I don't know who wants to interject. But please, ladies, if you need to say something, come on up.
No, listen, I'm listening to this deep discussion, okay, because there's a lot of wisdom here.
Okay.
First of all, there were a lot of nuggets that were just dropped. And talking about the emotional wellness of parents, a lot of people fail to realize that even though single moms shoulder the responsibility a lot of the time, regardless of what the narrative is, there is so much emotional unwellness in the household of a single mom. And that may actually speak to that statistic that Strolling Through mentioned, saying that kids are better off with their fathers. There's something about, as a mom, when you shoulder the burden of every single aspect of the responsibility, right? Sometimes you just forget the nurturing. Sometimes you forget. Don't say you look just like your father and then have the scowl on your face. Remember to nudge the child on the head and give him a kiss.
I'm guilty of it.
Okay, you look just like your father with a big old smile, because then you are creating a different story, literally, for this child to carry with them. Those narratives that Letitia spoke on, my thoughts immediately went to, when does that negative script begin? Does it start from birth? Does it start from listening to your parents argue? Does it start from hearing your mama crying in the middle of the night? Does it start from, looking in the mirror and seeing the reflection of a person who is not there with you? There's just so much to unpack there. And I agree that everyone should be in therapy. I even believe that grandparents should be in therapy. I've seen and heard a lot of grandparents speak out about grandparents' rights, right? But not even trying to see how to properly grandparent children without causing further harm from even more outdated and archaic narratives that will hurt the child in the future, So yeah, there was just a lot. We've got this dad here in my community. He was responsible for the father figures is what it's called. I'm sorry, in Guilford County, North Carolina. And he advocates very strongly for fathers in all situations, fathers in the loss of a child, fathers in child support being an imbalanced system, fathers in decisions about co-parenting and custody, and why the consideration is not immediately for a 50-50 situation between both parents. Let's both figure out how we can maximize our time with the children. Let's both figure out how we can best financially support the children together, not someone benefiting from, my hard work and the child still doesn't know what I look like on a daily basis, right? So I'm going to stop there because there's so many places we could go from there.
I think we can just keep going and going with that, right?
I had something I wanted to say. Is that okay?
Come on up. Come on. Go ahead, Jasmine. This is a free conversation. We're just having the conversation.
I had two things.
Okay.
First, I wanted to comment on what Letitia said about getting some form of help. And I would just say that I definitely agree with the part about therapy not always being the right option.
Mm-hmm.
I have been going to therapy for a very long time. But one thing I will say is that it requires a certain level of self awareness for it to actually help, I feel like. And
Okay.
sometimes in situations, I'm just going to speak on my personal experience with like abuse and being like, in that type of situation. Is just that sometimes you don't even have the awareness that it's going on
Okay.
to be able to sit down and talk to somebody and say, hey, like things are getting really bad. Sometimes honestly, it doesn't feel like it's getting that bad until you start looking at the entire timeline of the relationship. Like when you're in it, sometimes you just can't see what's actually happening until you're out of it, honestly. For at least for my experience, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really realize how bad it really was
Okay.
until I was completely removed from the situation. And then looking back, I'm like, wow, like things had gotten really bad, but there's no way that I could have sat down and told my therapist, hey, like this is getting really bad. This is getting really bad because I didn't even realize
Yeah, I think there's
that.
something called being too close to the situation to actually see it. You get tunnel vision
Exactly.
type thing.
So
Absolutely.
like, I can understand how that might deter somebody from getting the help that they might need because honestly, you might not even have the consciousness to realize like
Correct.
I need to get this help. Like this is getting bad, and especially, I mean, I don't know how it is when you add children into the mix, but if you yourself are so deep in it that you can't see what's going on, then I'm sure like the kids kind of just get a little to the wayside in that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I wanted to say, oh, was about the question or the statement that children are better off with their fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have both of my parents in my life, but I also have my grandparents and my aunts and my uncles. And I say all that to say just that the family structure is bigger than just the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I personally feel like in my personal life, my parents are great and I love them. But if it were not for extra people in my life, I don't know how I made it sometimes. So I say that to say I don't think children are better off with their fathers or their mothers. I think children need love and support from multitudes of people in their life. Like you can't just expect a mother and a father to give a child all of the support that they need. That's why there's that saying that it takes a village because it's just
Yep.
like two people can't, and then don't let you have multiple kids. Two people just can't do everything. So I feel that in response to that, that it's not just about mothers and fathers. It's really about the whole family dynamic or the whole village, if you want to, so to speak.
Absolutely.
I agree. Keisha, have anything to add in? Again, I can't see you guys your beautiful faces, so I'm trying to add everyone into the mix.
Yeah, I do agree. You do need a village to raise kids nowadays. You definitely do. Because some people are just not emotionally ready to have kids, and then when it's a like she said, like everybody's been saying, there's so many different layers to the story that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I have so many questions I just like to ask the mom, but I don't know. I don't know.
I think that it definitely takes a village to raise children, especially in different eras. Like I have older children and I have a younger children now, and the world is different from the 90s. And right now, I didn't even know that there was like X's and Z's, or Jasmine, correct me. I don't know. You guys have different letters and different of the alphabet. Then there's the whole LBGQ thing going on. It's like a bunch of letters going on, and I don't know who's in what. But raising children is different. So you definitely need those aunts and the uncles and friends that have children around the same time to tell you if you're doing the same thing, because old school discipline you can't do. Now you have to do the more timeouts and more validation. As far as I know, Letitia, tell me if I'm incorrect. It's more of reinforcing and affirmations to children. And when I grew up, it was whatever your parents said, and that's how you rolled. That's just it.
I think it's a combination, and I think that um, just finding healthy ways to discipline, and it doesn't mean not spanking and things like that. It's more or less knowing what works for that child. So spanking is something that, you know, is still often used, and there's even guidelines just in terms of what's appropriate as far as discipline. Like if you are going to use some people use a paddle or a little belt or anything like that, but where it crosses the line is if it leaves marks or bruises, and if it is across the face, or if it's demeaning, and is it something that's really hurting the person, not
Right.
just hey, let me give you a quick pat or something like that. So even with systems like DSS and things like that, they don't rule out not spanking. It's just what type of physical punishment are you using? To what extent do you use it where it becomes traumatic or harmful, or things like that? And it's something that gets discussed a lot, because there is a lot of ways to parent, and there's gentle parenting and things like that.
Right.
And, when it comes to parenting, I usually tell people use the parenting style that fits your personality, that you can be consistent with, and help the child, learn a lesson and things like that. For me, I'm less of a physical disciplinarian. I will spank, but I'm not necessarily the belt person. You know
Okay.
what I mean? That's not because it doesn't fit my personality, as far as just me as a person and just what I've experienced. My parents weren't physical disciplinarians and things like that, but
Okay.
I believe that they would hurt me. If I got
You got out of line.
right. I believe that, there was that level of belief that, oh my gosh, they're really going to get me.
Right.
And, I never got a belt before in my life. I think I had 2 spankings in my whole life. And
congratulations.
those were enough. I was scared of them. Those were enough for me to say, you know what, I get it. And that's just what worked for me. Now, not saying that, my brothers and sisters have a different story, but that's just what worked for me. So it's a matter of finding what works for the child, and just making sure that it's something that doesn't just compromise who they are, because there's a lot of different reasons why spankings are used: religious beliefs, and cultural, and all these different things. So my thing is always, are you damaging the child psychologically, and is this a safe method where they're
Right.
not physically hurt and scarred and things.
Yeah, I find like I was saying before, the way that we were raised back, and I'm not telling my age or anything like that, but before the 90s and before the 80s, okay. Where even you weren't able to tell your parents certain things without them making you feel like you did something wrong, when it's actually something happened to you, is very important, and it causes trauma. Not only do the children have it hard enough to deal with, now they're putting out that there's the modern woman and that she doesn't need a man, but what she's really trying to do is make sure she has enough so she's not falling by the wayside. So it seems like she doesn't need a man, but what she's trying to do is, empower herself. Well, this is my opinion, of course. Empower herself so her children feel a certain way, and they have a certain way of thinking highly of themselves, and then the father will come along, or say the mother comes along opposite way, because the father has his bag and they're expecting the parents to just love them. It doesn't matter about money or whatever. And they feel like, well, you have to do things my way, the way I see it. And it becomes harder with the social media. For myself, I feel like it's harder for these kids to say what they really think and what they really want to say. They think that they should say, my parents are no good, when they actually want my parents to just love me like a normal kid, even if they are going out to get in the bag. Does anybody agree with that?
I'm going to say this. In the state that I live at, these kids have no problem speaking up for themselves. Sometimes it's good to hear what some of them are saying. Mm-hmm. And then there's other times, some kids, not all kids, some of these kids here, they're just terrible. I mean, they are absolutely terrible. And sometimes I say to myself, God, you couldn't have been brought up in the home that I was brought up in. Because sometimes some kids, they just have no respect. They don't have respect for authority or anyone, not even their own parents. And it's scary. It can be very scary sometimes.
Do you think the parents aren't parenting? They weren't ready to be parents? They need guidelines, because the children are mirroring sometimes their own parents.
Well, I'll just say, here's a situation. So when my daughter was a senior in high school, there was an incident at her school where the girl hypothetically got beaten up, right? Mm-hmm. So the girl came back to the school. Her parents brought her back to the school so she can fight the girl that beat her up. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, you're encouraging that behavior? Like, you're really encouraging that behavior rather than just saying, okay, it is what it is. That's not something you should be doing in school. Like, these kids down here, they'll come to your house to fight. That's how crazy they are nowadays.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Well, who do you think is at fault there? The parenting the parents, or just society saying, go and get your respect? Because you watch these videos, and like I said, in a different show with Sana, some of these lyrics and stuff are exactly why the child is acting like that. The music is a lot. Jasmine, what do you think? Do you think the lyrics and the stuff on social media is causing these parents and children to act like they have no sense?
I feel like it's a bit of both.
Okay.
I feel like on the one hand, I do feel like it's your job as a parent to censor what your children have access to, mm-hmm. Especially in their younger age. With phones and social media and everything, you literally have the whole world at your fingertips, and that is too much for a child.
Okay.
A child doesn't need the world at their fingertips. They need a small amount of access. Because there's so many things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And, that could be speaking as far as sexual content, that could be violent content, that could, any of those things. There's just some things that kids just don't need to see because they can't handle it. They're not ready for it at that age.
Now, do you think that brings some kind of abuse to your children if you let them just watch everything willy-nilly?
I don't know if I would use the word abuse, but I definitely think it's unhealthy. I think that it shapes views about the world that a child isn't necessarily ready to have shaped yet. Because there's a difference between being exposed to something and then having the knowledge, the maturity to actually be able to understand it the way that you're supposed to understand it. Mm-hmm. And that is where the parent part comes in. You have to have the wherewithal to say, okay, like, no, my child is not ready to see this because they don't have the maturity to comprehend it. They don't have the maturity to understand it how it's supposed to be understood.
Okay. So that goes back to the village, right? Telling them how to understand it.
Yes, but honestly, for me personally, I just feel like until a certain age, children just shouldn't have social media at all. It's too hard to monitor. Like it's too hard to be able to be on your kid 24/7 to know what they're looking at. So I feel like before a certain age, they don't even need to be. What is a 10-year-old doing with an Instagram anyway?
Honestly, dancing, like TikTok dances,
like
for the world to see.
We can put the TikTok dances on YouTube, and you can do them in the living room to get together with me. You don't need your own TikTok for that. That's
correct.
So I just feel like those are the kind of things that I would be thinking about if I had that's something I worry about when I think about having a kid in the future. Like, what is my parenting going to look like with all of this social media and everything else? Because I might not expose my kid to it, but JJ in their first period class, his parents let him stay up all night and watch whatever he wants to watch. So then he's exposing them to it. So it's just like, it's hard to navigate, honestly. It's hard to navigate for the kids and for the parents.
Yeah, parenting is no joke. It's a lot of work. It may look simple to some people. I mean, the everyday making sure they eat and they're under a roof and stuff comes with you have to be emotionally right to go to work.
Man, I'm barely doing it for myself.
I want to point out a point that Jasmine made about the television shows and the explaining, and it's kind of hard to juggle it all because Jasmine may remember distinctly she couldn't watch mostly anything that was on television. I just wouldn't allow it. And all their friends would know about all these shows. They're like, you never let us watch anything. But hey, if I'm working 2 jobs and I'm in school and I am balancing the dinner and the appointments and everything else, I might not have that extra couple of minutes to explain why That's So Raven can see into the future, and all this. It's layered, right? So I think that was important because she was deprived from a lot of the experiences that a lot of other children may have had who did have parents to navigate them through it. So she was like, in my opinion, and Jasmine, you tell me if I'm wrong, I think that that overcorrection can also be really harmful for a child in the society that we live in. That has been my personal reflection as a mom.
Yeah, we actually, me and my mom did sit down and have a conversation about this recently because I do have younger siblings. And so I have been doing a lot of reflecting on both of my parents just because I have younger siblings on both my mom and my dad. And I've been thinking about like how things could have been different for me as a child and what I can do like as a sister to try to make things better for my younger siblings.
Okay.
And so we did have a conversation where I was telling her, like compared to my friends, there's a lot of experiences that I didn't get to have. And sometimes I do feel like regretful about that, even though it's not anything that I could have done to change it because it wasn't in my control. But, I do wish that I had been exposed to more things or, that I was just up on game about certain things before I was the adult making the decisions. And I do say that to say I think balance is the biggest thing, but it's hard. Nobody can take away from the fact that it's hard to balance all of those things because it's hard for you to balance them for just you. And then you bring in other people and you're solely responsible for them. So, I would much rather have a warm dinner on the table than be able to watch that extra 15 minutes of TV. So I understand, sometimes you have to make sacrifices, but balancing is important. Kids do need to be exposed to some things, just not everything. So it's really about, having that discretion to know.
Yeah, balance is work. Learning to balance it all. I'm curious about why not That's So Raven? So I let my kids watch it when they were kids. Your mom didn't like That's So Raven?
It wasn't that. Okay, I'll get into that in just a sec because I see where my mom has actually put something in the chat. First of all, thank you for tuning in, Mama. So we got 3 generations here. Mama Queen, Queen Sanaa, and Baby Queen. So my mother says, thank you. You have a 15-year-old that just shot up and killed human beings here in Raleigh, and rest in peace to those who lost their lives out in Raleigh. She said, I can't imagine what was going on, what he was going on in life, in his head. And I like that you said in his head, because it's all about your perception of what you're going through, what your experiences are, and your ability to cope, right?
Right.
So strolling through right after that, just asked who's raising these kids to be so emotional. And I'm emphasizing the so because there's nothing wrong with having emotions, right? But absolutely having that balance, that line of demarcation. This is going too far. This is an overreaction. And because of such a bombardment of stimulation, a bombardment of information, a bombardment of different ideas that are not being sorted through by emotionally mature minds. These are the type of outcomes that we tend to have. And I definitely want to hear that therapeutic perspective about it. And then, Jazz, I'll come back to you. I didn't mean to cut you off, dear.
Letitia.
I couldn't hear the last part of what Sanaa said about. Can you repeat?
Sanaa, repeat what you said so you can hear the therapeutic.
Okay, so it was mostly about the social emotional skills, the tools, the learning that allows you to cope through your emotional responses in a healthy way, a balanced way.
Okay, yeah. I think the place where we are today is so totally different from where we were growing up, just as far as social media and accessibility to information. And I think one of the things that's going to be something that really doesn't get talked about is really the transition from parenting over the generations, right? And so if we think about what the big thing was for our parents when they were growing up, and the big thing was accessibility by telephones and the accessibility of television. And technology has always been the thing that was harder for people to transition through if we kind of just look at things as they changed over time. And I think we're still in that same space where things are more accessible, but when we think about it, it's always been more accessible as time has gone on. You know what I mean? And so I think it's a matter of really being in that place of saying, okay, let me learn about this technology space. Let me learn about it so that I know what is normal for them, you know, how they're actually taking it, because I'm taking it from the standpoint of it being new to me. Where now they're taking it as they don't know any better. They don't, you know, we talk about, hey, we having our conversations of the olden days, so to speak, where it's like I showed my son a tape recorder and he said, "Oh, I heard of that." What do you mean you heard of this?
Hold on. I got to tell a story real quick. I was watching something earlier. There was a flight attendant that actually called the security onto a plane because she didn't know what was in the overhead. It was wires were connected, and she kept hearing. It was a Walkman that was left on, and she thought it was a bomb. She really was about to call, you know, the B word, the whole team for that. So I'm sorry to interject, but I just watched it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's a thing, and it is definitely a thing. I mean, he saw a tape recorder. He's like, "Oh, there's like this thing that goes inside," and I'm like, "A tape?" And he's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Okay." Wow, this was my life at one point. I remember when CDs came in. You know what I mean? So you know, yeah, you know, I still have CDs. I have a whole box. Now, where's my CD player? I have a CD player. Where can I buy one? I don't know. But times have gone on, you know, and you know, you just look at how things have changed, and we have to adapt in order to adapt the children also, and how we parent. You know, the days of going to the record store is over. Do they even exist anymore? To go and say, I need a single. Let me find you know, go through the racks and buy CDs. Just those small things that were a part of who we were growing up. Now, here these children are, and we're like, wait, what do you mean you're going to download this and look at that. So for me, my thing was I had to really learn how to readjust parenting skills training, and even through that adjust mine. So now I have to say, okay, we have to teach you how to not talk to strangers in a different way now, because talking to strangers in the street at the park, that's irrelevant, because now they're tapping in through your social media and tapping in through you, where you think you're talking to a friend and you're talking to a whole grown up, that's just not okay. So all of these different things, how do we now teach children how to discern what the things that we've learned growing up, how do we translate that into social skills online and in person? Because even the schools are not really on our side when it comes to not having technology. Now they're giving out computers to first graders now. It used to be until third or fourth grade you get a laptop. Everything is moving in a direction, and we have to just be able to keep up with it and let them know certain people are going to know certain things. And when it comes to you, I want you to know how to deal with it. I want you to know how to respond to it. And I want you to be comfortable enough to ask me questions about it if it comes up.
Right. When I was a kid, I think that my parents didn't have enough information, and now it's an overload of information that's out there for the kids. And they are trying to do a balance trick for themselves right now, saying, okay, what's reality? Because even reality shows, they have a cut. They say cut, and kids think that it was on a reality show. So what do you mean?
They have scripts.
Right.
They have somewhat of a script that they follow,
Right.
like an agenda. We're going to talk about this topic, and then it's free to go.
Right.
So even that has some scripting, and prep to it.
Yeah, because my 12-year-old, she's like, but it was on a reality show, and this happened, and the girl got in the refrigerator, and she stayed. There's absolutely no way she stayed in the refrigerator. So it's more of, now you have to balance not only what's happening in school, but social media. The television is totally different. The television is something that they don't actually even have to watch anymore. It's on whatever device they have, the iPad, the tablet, the telephone, the cell phone. My daughter goes, what's a telephone? It's a cell phone, Mom. So I correct myself when I say telephone. But yeah, that's a lot of balancing. And I think a lot of parents might have missed the mark when you were younger, when I was younger, I should say, in that day and age, not knowing how to respond to things that occurred with their own children.
Yeah, so true.
Keisha, you've been quiet.
I'm just listening. I'm listening. Because like when my child was little, I remember, well, Facebook wasn't, when I first had it, there was no such thing as Facebook and all of that stuff.
MySpace.
Oh, God, have mercy. Right. But you got jokes. Anyway, but as she got older, you had to pay attention to everything that she watched. And I used to tell her, the TV can't go off of these certain channels. If it's not Nickelodeon, like, I want you to be watching the Backyardigans. It had to be something that you're learning something. And if it was any, she tried to, well, what about this? Well, so-and-so is watching this at school, and so-and-so is doing this. Well, it doesn't matter. That's not something that you can do. And so she used to, then she got into books. There were certain books that I would allow her to read. So I just think you just have to, it's hard to, I had one, and helping her to just navigate through things that she could do and things that she couldn't do. It was easy, but then it was hard because it was always, well, so-and-so is doing this, so I don't understand why I can't do this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Parenting 101. So we really didn't touch on all the drama or trauma. That's the word. Trauma that my daughter, I have a middle child, and so her trauma is drama, and it goes hand in hand. So I might mess up with the words, but the trauma that us as children and other children have encountered over the years and what have you. But I personally feel like, again, there was a lot of information that the parents in days past, is the nice way of saying it, in days past, that didn't know exactly how to respond because there was no response from what they were taught. Because we kind of put things under the rug, don't know how to respond. So the trauma falls on the next generation and the following generation, because there is that thing where you say, what happens in our house happens in our house. We don't tell anybody or anything of that manner. And a lot of kids feel like, okay, now it's not important. Me, myself, I've had experiences, but does anybody here feel the same way? Like there's been generational things that have happened because there wasn't enough information out there for the parents.
You know I'm gonna jump and shout about that one, right? Because when you think about the research that says that generational trauma goes back 7 generations, and you think about where we were individually, not even as the monolith of Black people, right?
Okay.
But in our own individual families and cultures and experiences, 7 generations back, some of us were in some places that we will never want to return to, with no way to learn information about how to nourish your child when your day to day is about survival, right? Your day to day is about, if I look wrong, am I going to get strung up from a tree? Or,
Yes.
you know, if the man of this house tries to intervene on the behalf of the woman he swore to protect and love and the children that came from that union, is that going to result in him having his brains blown out? And then you go on and you carry that fear and you carry those narratives, and you they're eating, they have somewhere to live, so I'm doing a good job, so I'm not a bad mother, right? And then you go one step from there and you're like, okay, well, I'm hugging and they're eating, right? And they have somewhere to live, so I'm doing a good job. And nobody ever stops to ask, well, what actually is missing? What do you need? What's going to
Communication.
help you, right? You understand what I'm saying? What do you actually need? Because I need food, clothing, and shelter, but I also need to be able to say, Mom, I'm scared at night. I don't know why I'm scared at night. It's whether it's dark or the lights are on. I just feel this thing that I can't shake. Hey, Stephen, how you doing? Thanks for checking in. Hey there, Lit Libra. You want to be able to know that people are starting to heal what's missing.
Yep.
And like I keep saying, this whole show, it's layers. There are layers and layers to this thing.
Definitely a lot of layers that go with it. And yeah, there's, like I said, there's an overload now of stuff that wasn't back in the day. Unapologetic, we're talking about parental controversy and trauma, and what else are we talking about, ladies? Letitia.
Breaking generational curses.
Yes. Generational curses. Keisha, what do you think we're talking about? I love to, when somebody says, what are we talking about? Because we're talking about a whole mess of things.
We're covering a lot of stuff today.
But I believe that the best thing for parents nowadays is take the time to communicate and find out how to communicate with your child. It's not the same way. I have an older child and I have a 12-year-old. When I say older, I'm not telling you the age of the older child because that will age me. But I cannot communicate the same way with the two of them. One does not think the same way. It's like having students. Your kids can be students. They don't learn the same way. They don't hear the same way. They don't comprehend the same way. Letitia, how do you feel? Hello? I can't see you guys, so I don't even know if someone's doing anything. Being able, Jasmine?
I was reading this post the other day.
Okay.
And it's similar to something that you said. It just made me think about it. Okay. But it was basically saying how, like, if you and your siblings talk, you guys have a completely different, y'all grew up in the same house, but you have a completely different experience. Like, you experienced your parent differently.
Yep.
You experienced the way that they raised you, you know, in a different light. And I always think that that's so interesting, especially because, like, when I say I have younger siblings, like, there's like one of my siblings, there's a 20-year difference between us.
Okay.
So it's just like, looking at the way that my parents are with them versus how I grew up is always so funny to me, because like me and my sister, who's a little bit, she's only like 3 years younger than me, we'll look at each other and we'll be like, man, we would have been through a wall. And they're just sitting there just kiki laughing and having a good time. But I just think that that's, so interesting how, you get to watch your parents grow and evolve. And your parents get to watch, you guys are really growing up together. Like, although they're adults, I'm maturing, you're maturing. We're really becoming our best selves with each other. And if you can keep that good relationship, with your parent, you really get to see that growth and development, like one on one, even in your own personal relationship. Like, yes, I'm an adult, so I don't know if my mom could put me through a wall now in the same context that she could when I was a kid, but I know that she wouldn't try to anymore either. And that's growth. So you really get to see it happen.
I wouldn't test my mom to find out personally.
Either.
If
No,
she
me
said
either.
she could put me through a wall, I wouldn't test it. Just putting that out there for you,
Absolutely not. I believe she might still can do it. I think she's still strong enough.
You're right. I am strong enough, but I would never. Jasmine, I'm just going to say this as a mom, has matured into this amazing young woman with all this insight and all this knowledge, and the foresight to stop before she speaks, right? But to still be grounded in the realness of it all. I remember it was my middle child, my 18-year-old. Sent me this Instagram post that said, no, beat her with the refrigerator the way you used to do me, right? And I cackled because it was hilarious, but it really made me think, as we evolve as parents, our techniques change.
Yes.
Our desire to communicate more from a healthy space changes, or at least you would hope. And especially when you do the work, like Letitia was saying, the counseling is necessary. The changing of the narratives is very necessary. But I would never put Jasmine through a wall, because Jasmine is a beautiful flower. And why would you do that to a beautiful flower? Gosh, people.
Exactly. You wouldn't do that.
But Letitia was going to say something, it looks like.
No, I was just piggybacking off of, that whole aspect, but I didn't have any other insight to add.
Okay.
Oh, my mom said, I am so proud of you, Jasmine. It's really nice to have the familial representation here. I love it.
Yes. Jasmine, you should feel amazing right now.
Yeah.
I'm blushing behind the camera.
Yeah, that's my big girl. Jasmine is actually my firstborn second. And I'm always transparent about this because infant mortality is something that a lot of people need to be aware of. I was a very young mom at the age of 19. My first child was stillborn.
Okay.
So Jasmine is my firstborn second. And her father and I did not know how to navigate the loss of a child at such a young age, any more than we knew how to navigate parenthood at such a young age. But Jasmine made a very important point about the village having both parents, because her father's been in her life her entire life. And even when we didn't speak to each other, her father was still in her life her entire life, of his own recognizance. And, I've always been happy for her to have that, because there's so many children that didn't even have that part of it. But then you throw in the grandparents, and then you throw in the cousins and the aunts and the siblings and the friends, and what that does for a young person, in my opinion, is it fortifies you to deal with those challenges that our children are facing these days.
Exactly.
Is it okay if I piggyback off that real quick?
Yes, yes. Definitely.
I know I keep asking, but I want to make sure. I feel better asking.
I appreciate it, but go ahead, honey.
I just want to say that yes, the older I get, the more I realize like how important it is to have deep relationships with people outside of your family. Sometimes it gives you a new perspective, but also just that, I just feel like if I didn't have the extra people that I had, definitely navigating the things that I've been through in my life would have just been so much harder, because it's like there's some things, as much as parents want us to talk to them about everything, there's some things that I'm just not going to sit down and talk to you about, or even I would say maybe not completely ever, but I need to talk it over with somebody else first so that I can make sure whatever I tell you is what I actually wanted to tell you. And so I would say, yeah, like it's just really, really important, you know, to have those extra people in your life that you can turn to in the time of need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. A village is very important. Sanaa, did you want to piggyback again?
Yeah, I do. Because I just thought of something, and that want to run it by somebody before you drop it on your mom or your dad. So for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I participated in a calendar shoot. Okay. And I am Miss January. Inspire 2023 catalog. We'll drop the link in just a bit so you can get your copy. And it just tells a lot of stories about survival. And as we all know, a lot of those situations come from traumas and narratives and, just generational stuff that maybe had it been unpacked early, maybe would not have led to that particular type of life. But there's a part in there where I tell my story about my first experiences, and you all are just going to have to get the calendar to read it. But I said to my mama, I said, I know you want to buy one, but I just want you to know I'm like really, really, really raw in this narrative. And she goes, listen, your experiences are your experiences. It is what it is, and we have to own it. And there was that accountability piece that was mentioned earlier. I believe that that's the biggest key to all of our healing, that accountability. Yes. Being able to say, this is what it is, this is what it was, but this is where we've healed to from there, and now let's move forward. Let's not stay stuck in that trauma narrative. So kudos to you, Jasmine, and Letitia for sharing all this insight. And my mom, you said you're proud of me. Strolling through said, get it, ladies. Thank you all very much from the heart. And Savage thank you on the congratulations. So yeah, we'll get that link in just a second. I'm just going to get quiet because I just love hearing y'all talk.
Well, we're not going to keep you guys because I know it's family day and everyone has things to do on Sunday. I know it's also football day, but I definitely want to put into perspective the two that mirror each other. If you do have trauma or you do have things that you have not opened up and discussed, parenting and not knowing how to parent and causing trauma with your children is also something that comes all together. It ties in. If you're one of those parents that you've never seen anything better than an experience where the two parents are arguing over each other, it does cause conflict. It does cause trauma for the children. It does cause, there's a cause and effect to everything is basically what I'm saying. We will have closing from anybody that wants to talk. Letitia, just in closing, how do you feel about parental controversy? You feel like it's something to do with trauma from the past or things that we've all learned incorrectly?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think definitely trauma from the past, just our experience as being parented definitely plays a role in how we parent. And, sometimes it can be the exact opposite of what we've experienced, or sometimes it can be a replication of it. And so it's just a matter of getting to know the child and really being in that space to be confident and knowing that it doesn't come with a manual, and offering compassion to self. I definitely, in closing, want to give a shout out to Sanaa and all that she's doing. I'm so proud of her. And to Jasmine, oh my gosh, I love her so much. And I'm so I'm so excited to hear how how smart and insightful that she is. And I'm not surprised by any means, because I've always felt that she was a genius baby. And, it all makes sense. So big shout outs, to my people.
Because you were there when she said her first sentence at 6 months old, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm gonna tell you. I said because I always laugh because I babysat Jasmine, and she was my first babysitting endeavor. And I told Sana, I said, "You trust me with your baby? Oh my God, I'm so honored." And I remember I picked her up from daycare, and she got in the car, and I didn't know that she can talk. And she got in the car, and she's like, "I'm tired." And I said, "What?"
At 6 months old.
I'm tired. And not only did she say that, I'm like, okay, maybe she doesn't know what it means to be tired. Maybe it's just random. And I said, "You want to take a nap? You sleepy?" "Yes." "What?" And I called and I said, "Do you know your baby talks?" And she's like, "Mm-hmm." Like, what? Best job ever.
That's something somebody could have told you, right? Because
right, you should have told me.
Just a little bit. Just give me a little bit.
Impressed. Yes. So that's
I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal.
Not at 6 months old. No, not really.
Beautiful. Yes.
Jasmine, do you have any remarks for closing?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
First and foremost, thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for having me. I hope that I can come back. I would love to do another one. Thank you, Tisha. Thank you, Mommy. I love you guys. And I think this was a really great open dialogue. I love to hear what you guys have to say. I feel like I've learned some things. And I hope that I was able to add some insight to the conversation as well.
Definitely have.
And yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, and thank you, Grandma, for showing up too. Love you too. Okay.
Keisha, do you have any remarks?
Thank you again for having me. I'm gonna go and call my daughter and ask her some questions, see what she thinks. Yeah,
just dialogue.
Just to get some perspective. Even though she's an adult, even though she's an adult, she's still my baby. So, I'm just gonna see what's going on in her mind.
And just so you guys know, Keisha was my first babysitter for my oldest daughter as well. So it's the babysitter club up here.
Okay.
Because I was a young mom too, and I did not know what I was doing. And she had the license, so she picked up my daughter but Dominique didn't talk, but Dominique came with a tooth. So she would say, your child has teeth and she's back here eating or she wants to eat.
Yes, baby.
Not just, spoon fed. She wanted French fries and nuggets or whatever else.
French fries, chicken nuggets, and pizza with her Kool-Aid, her Hawaiian punch. I won't forget that ever.
Yes.
So I really do appreciate you ladies. Of course, Queen, do you have anything else to say, hon?
No, and my mom froze, so she just wanted to tell you she loves you, Jasmine. That's it. I'm looking forward to next week's topic and to having Jasmine and everyone come back because this dialogue is really
definitely.
It's really special to me. Special dialogue.
Yep. Yeah. And we will continue the conversation, ladies. I appreciate you all for coming on. I appreciate everyone in the chat. We're not going to read everything that was said, but go ahead, Sana. I know you run through. Go.
Okay, let's see. Go up there real quick. All right, so my mom's screen froze. It's a great show. Okay, we went through the congratulations. There's a Linktree link to the Queen Sana Linktree platform. You can find everything about buying your calendar to support Inspire 2023, domestic violence awareness. Also, shout out to my mom, People Promoting Peaceful Processes. It's her domestic violence awareness nonprofit. Mom showing love. Good show, ladies, from Strolling Through. Thank you. Give me those smiles, unapologetic manhood. You see it. Okay. Stephen Heck, I love you guys. We love you too, Stephen. And great show, great platform. Thank you very much. All right, y'all. Come back and rewatch it. Ladies like us, there's always a good in-depth conversation going on here.
Definitely, definitely.
Hey, Natasha. Thank you for checking in. Late or not, you showed up. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you, Natasha. All right. Have a good day, ladies. Football.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.